Okay, we are up now. So we're live with our 82nd installment of Nansen Office Hours. With me today, I've got Louisa, who's one of our analysts, and Journey, who we've been trying to get on, who works with me on the Nansen social media team. And they're both big fans of NFTs. Louisa has a penguin. Journey will get a penguin someday. We're going to go through. Used to have a penguin. That kind of counts. So we're going to go through how to use Nansen to trade NFTs. So we'll look at various ways you can use the platform to know when to buy, if you should hold, and then also if you should sell. So there's going to be like various things that you can look at to do this. So we'll go through the kind of different methods and show you some like actual use cases, like the Factura GM Studios piece that came out the other day. So yeah, GM, thank you all for joining us. If you put your GMs in the chat, I'll have a look at that in a second. And before we start, if you're new to Office Hours, each Wednesday we do a Nansen and Chill session. We look at new features. We'll go over the features we've already got. We'll answer any questions from you guys, so put more questions in the chat as well. And we'll do some alpha leaks if we can. So make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on, so you don't miss anything in the future. We've got a new series coming this Friday, me and CMS Intern, and we'll try and get some really cool guests on moving forward. And if you'd like to try Nansen, we'll have a Nansen Lite sign-up link in the description below. So what we're going to start with is these Factura pieces and like how you could have found them, how you could have traded them, look at the price action at the moment. So I think, Journey, if your screen is ready, you can start us off. Are you ready?
I'm born ready.
If you put your tab up, I can't see it yet. No, we can see your StreamYard. I'll show mine while we wait for your one. If you get yours ready, I can go on to Factura.
I need to click on it, add to stream. Is that how it works? Cool.
Okay.
Sorry. Can you see my screen now? Yeah?
Yes. Can we see your screen?
Yes, we Factura?
Can. Yeah.
Awesome. I think Factura is probably the NFT of the week. There's a lot of like price actions on social media. People have been talking about it. So maybe just a little bit of background. It's actually an NFT collection curated by GM Studio. So GM Studio is a studio that actually formed by GM DAO, right? So they're a group of people who are artists, collectors, and they also have their own NFT collection, which allows some of the token holders to mint their future NFT collections. So you can see Factura is actually one of the latest NFTs that they have released. And okay, Factura by Matthias Isaacson. I did a little bit of background check on this artist because I wasn't very familiar with his artwork. So actually he was on Foundation as well. So he's been releasing his other NFT artworks. It's very mesmerizing if you look at them, sort of like this landscape formed by very geometric shapes. And he's from Norway, I believe, same as two of our co-founders, Lars and our CEO, Alex. And let's take a look at Nansen Paradise. So yeah, I think, Alex, as you mentioned that, how could people have discovered the Factura mint if they were not a GM Studio token holders? I guess one of the ways that you could have discovered it is during the latest mints that you can see on our Mint Master tab, where you can sort of like look at a formal level, number of minters, and of course, smart minters.
I think I put, so I did actually see this on like the pre-mint, if that's what you call it. So it was like the allow list. So how I did it was like on the far right side where it says first mint there. If you filtered like on that day, it had quite a lot of smart minters and the volume was like relatively high. I think it had been out for like a couple hours. And I'd never heard Actually, I had heard of GM Studios like a long time ago, but I never really looked into it. I think I saw like the first collection come out. So then I went on the website. I was like, okay, I recognize these. And I should have minted. And I'm an idiot, and I didn't. But yeah, it was quite an obvious one. Yeah.
Totally. I think like if you sort of like compare GM Studios NFT jobs to art blocks, which is one of the more sort of well-known generative art NFT collections, their mean prices, very, very affordable or friendly, because a lot of the art blocks NFT collections is usually Dutch auction, and then the price will be at like 3 ETH or something. I guess. Yeah, why didn't you mint? Oh, you were not on the
Enjoying my weekend. I was trying to relax.
Okay, you're out touching grass.
But I think in the future, like all of their pieces now are like way above mint. So I'm guessing it's going to be quite difficult to mint as well now. I feel like everyone's just going to be going for them. But then that's a good thing for price action as well. So definitely keep an eye out on those future releases. But yeah, carry on. So what could you have done, Journey, once you've seen it on that mint list? So you can go in like further and look at it at NFT God mode.
Yeah. So to be honest, like recently a lot of mints are free mints. So this one is actually very, very unique. If we look at the NFT God mode on Nansen, I was a bit late to this, like you, I was out touching grass. So when I saw this, but this is very strong signal, right? You can see like, okay, main price is 0.15. That's where most of the people got their NFTs. And then there's a lot of like smart NFT buyers in this zone. I think Alex, our Token God CEO, actually tweeted as well, and he bought this collection. He bought an NFT because he saw all this smart money aping in, and I think they were believing this is the next Fidenza could be. But I guess you can sort of see that the buyers definitely have sort of slowed down a little bit, and then also the prices has dropped. I believe the floor kind of reached 4.3 at some point. Yeah.
I think it's important as well, like when you look at those transactions, so you see a lot of like smart money buying in that big like cluster. If you hover over one of them, Journey, so like hover over one of the dots rather than the, so you can see who the actual people are as well. Because like that person is a good example. That ex Humera or something often like collects type of pieces and does really well off them. So you need to actually kind of look who they are as well. And if you've been on Nansen for like long enough, you know the reputation of people. You know like what they kind of do with their NFTs, and you also know, okay, if this person's buying, like I think we were speaking about it before we like went live. If you see JG buying an art block, very good sign because he seems to do like amazing on art box pieces. So yeah, you need to kind of drill individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the sort of like active or top buyers, and you can sort of see the price. Basically, he swept the floor at about 1.3 to 1.5. So this is an address that's worth paying attention to, or maybe set smart alerts on. I think currently he's still holding his Factura, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I did actually open a tab on JG because I was like also just sharing with Alex that one of the smartest NFT collectors and traders, he actually bought Factura on the secondary market, right, at a relatively high price, 2.5, but managed to actually flip it in a day for almost 4.5 ETH. So that's a very, very smart move. Even though he's not a diamond hand for this collection, but it was a very, very smart move. Also worth, setting smart alerts or just put him on your watch list.
How did he sell for 6.9? Did he have a rare one or something? I swear they didn't go
Yeah,
to 6.
possible. Yeah, so you can actually also click on an NFT.
We had JG on as a guest recently, and he mentioned like trying to buy rare ones. I wondered if he knew how it was rare. I don't know. That seems interesting.
I think on Twitter there was a bit of a trend, depending on whether or not there was colors or not. So it could be that wave that the timing of it. Yeah, there was quite a bit of sentiment around the discussion of the details of the artwork.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people favor the diamond shape. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think they were talking about the shapes. And,
yeah,
you can see it there in the bottom left journey if you hover over it to the left-hand side. Look where it says rarity. Yeah. So apparently that's a good one.
51. Yes, it's a very good one.
Okay, so what else?
Maybe he sold it. Maybe he sold it too cheaply. We will see in the future because it's really one of the top collections. I think another address that actually we found very interesting, since we are in the topic of talking about NFT smart traders, which is this Chinese numbered ENS name. 693 basically means 693.eth. He has done, or they have done, like some incredible trade for. Let me just filter it. For not just Factura, but Gem Studio and the other sort of Gem Studio collections, and you can see they were very, very early. Even though they didn't mint the NFTs themselves, but they sort of like bought it at a relatively low price and managed to, I think, sell all of them because basically, yeah, they didn't have any Factura left anymore, but they managed to make 18 ETH from Factura, Gem DAO token, which is the Gem Studio token. And of course, there's another Plasticity. It's also one of the NFT collections, as well as Carripo. Just from these Gem Studio NFT collections, they actually make about 50 ETH, which is pretty incredible. Yeah.
I think we were speaking about it as well. Like this person kind of acted like a market maker for the NFTs. So like, for instance, I looked at this collection and it was like pumping. I think Sandra's in the chat. She bought one and I was like coping so hard. I was like, shall I just buy one of the other collections, like that Carripo one? And I went on that, and we can look at like how you'd find that after this as well. But I went onto that collection, and this person was on there as well. And he or she is like the biggest holder on all of the collections, and was just like flooding the floor each time that it went up. And I think, yeah, like you said, is now like completely exited. So it's a good person to put on your watch list as well, because you can see like, okay, is this person selling? Because it's probably time to leave, especially if they've got a lot of them. Yeah,
that's true. Maybe it's Sandra's address.
Maybe it's
the smart NFT wallet. You mentioned like how you could have discovered other related NFT collections when you see there is like a huge pump. So yeah, you can pretty much go to just related collections under the NFT God mode of Factura. So again, here you can sort of like, of course, just judging by the names, it doesn't tell you much, but you can just like take a look. Okay, wait, I think this one can only left. Yeah, take a look at the collection itself and then see how they are related. And it's not hard for you to realize that all this, this is the studio token again, NFT. All this are actually related NFT art collections released by Gem Studio. So like what you have said, right, Alex, all of them, actually the floor went up significantly. Just as
and you had a bit of time.
Pumping.
Like you had time, like just because the Facturas were pumping, like you didn't miss out on the ones. Like there was actually quite a decent time period of like maybe 3-4 hours between the other collections then going up. And that GM DAO token is like a very appealing buy actually.
That's why
people
the price are probably thinking totally. I mean, once you realize, okay, this is actually a studio that have their own like NFT collections, and as a sort of like NFT holder, you will be on the allow list for the future NFT jobs. That's very, very like attractive NFT
At
for
the
people
time,
to collect as well.
yeah, at the time it was like 2
Look at
ETH.
that.
So if you had that
Wow.
DAO,
Yeah.
you could have minted that Factura and it went to like 4. So you would have paid off the DAO token, and then now forever you have like all access to it. So yeah, it's a very good buy.
Absolutely.
We're not sponsored by DAO. Yeah.
Ask for sponsorship. Yeah.
But I guess what you mentioned, you can kind of see it from the patterns of the related collection, because when one collection, make their price movement, it tends to translate in all the other related collection. In the case with GM DAO, it's quite obvious that the following collections that actually made a price action was, all related to GM Studio. Yeah, I thought that's quite interesting, because sometimes people worry, if they exit, where do they go next, or if they've missed. I think one of the example, Alex, you mentioned was if someone has missed the boat for this, is there something else that they could be looking at?
Yeah.
I think we'll talk later as well. Louisa will go over like the kind of rotation into art NFTs and how art NFTs have done really well over the last quarter, which I think will be really interesting. But first, let's look more at like what you could have looked at for Factura. So like balance changes, like you're showing.
So it's a little bit of like due diligence and research, right? Once you have discovered this collection. And so what I did here, okay, if you're a VIP user, you can actually filter it just by smart money. Again, you can sort of like see when the smart money first, ate into this collection. And then some of them you can see they have, already exited. And of course, there are also some diamond hands holders here. Okay, please take note, sometimes the NFT balance could also be not just that they sold, maybe they sent to their other like vault or other wallet as well. But I think a quick look at the change here, you can see that they are not buying anymore. And there was one sale here, but there's a new smart money that just bought one 16 hours ago. So that's just sort of like to understand whether smart money interest is still here. Are they buying? Are they selling? Are they, just holding? And of course, like when it comes to top balances, if you see, there are smart money emoji, this is usually a good sign, especially if they are, hodlers, long-term hodlers, rather than just flippers, or we call them smart minters. Yeah, smart minters. Usually are people who just mint and are like sold within a short time frame.
If you go on that table, if you go back up, Journey, and then like filter by the change on 7 days. No, the one just below that.
Right.
Not that one. Yeah, there. If you click on the change 7 day and see the opposite effect.
Right.
Oh, showing 0.
Yeah.
Okay, it would show like negative because then you can see who's operating of them.
Or maybe it's less than 7 days. Oh, yeah, it's still less than 7 days. So maybe.
Oh, maybe that's why.
But
in these cases, you can look at like who's then sold off. So if you did the opposite, instead of like who's still holding, if you see who's sold off, and if it's like loads of smart money, again, that might be a signal like to sell. But I think for this collection, it's quite important as well to remember like just general principles. When there's like really high euphoria, like there was 3-4 days ago, long term they might still do really well, and I would be quite optimistic that they would. But it's still the same kind of principles of like high euphoria. Should you sell, and then maybe you can buy back lower if you wanted to, or whatever. Like Facturas were all over Twitter, and the day before, no one had really heard of DAO Studio. So it's one of them situations where maybe you just need to like take a pause and feel like, should I sell and buy back lower, or should I sell full stop? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we are 20 minutes in. Maybe let's go over the NFT indexes now.
Yes, sure. Okay, Louisa,
All right.
do you want to look
Sharing.
at NFT indexes? Put your screen up.
Cool. So we on the topic of index, this quarter, what was really exciting is we definitely see a lot of momentum and also performance with art NFTs. So some key highlights is what we saw with the reversal in NFT trends. We definitely saw blue chips leading the way. And what we've seen is for the first time with blue chips, we have chrome squiggles, art blocks, actually qualifying for the Nansen blue chip index. Meebits also made a return. And when we look at actually the Art 20, Nansen Art 20 index, we actually see, quite a bit of a rebound in the last month when it comes to June. Yeah, so that was quite interesting observation for us because in quarter one the performance of art was relatively lagging compared to the other indexes, but in Q2, despite what's going on in the macro environment, we definitely saw a lot of interest picking up with the art NFTs. So this chart kind of give a broad overview of how it looks like. So you can see with game, it is still, it hasn't really made a recovery yet. With art NFTs, it made a really strong recovery. And then for the other indexes, I think pretty much it's actually all in positive year to date. So this chart was quite interesting when you sort of compare the different segments of NFTs. You can see they actually do perform quite differently. That's actually one of the key intentions we had when we designed the index, because when people talk about NFT, they tend to talk about them as though they're homogeneous. But what we realized was the market was mature enough, and we do realize that within the NFT market, sometimes you have trends that don't really play out the same. But of course, what we do find is the majority of the drive. I mean, if you look at blue chip, majority of it in the blue chip index are still social NFT, and they still have the dominance also in the NFT 500 index. So that's sort of the broad overview. So again, going into NFT God mode, what the Nansen dashboard actually show is there were signs that there was strength in some of the NFTs already. So if we look at Chrome Squiggle, for example, you can see same thing, similar phenomenon as what Jenny has pointed out. You see influx of smart money coming in, and that tends to correlate with upward price movement. And what we see also with the other NFT is with Damien Hirst, the currency. We also saw quite similar, volumes coming in from smart money, and then we see a price movement going up. But what's also really interesting with our NFTs is their price are a lot more sensitive towards the price movement of Ethereum. So if you have noted Factura, for example, the price has adjusted. Even with the currency, the floor price has adjusted, and it tends to hold its USD price more than its ETH price. So that was quite interesting observation that we had. And I don't know if anyone took note on the finer details, but with art index is supposed to be art 20. So this, you're supposed to have really 20 collection, but in this recent rebalance, we only actually had 17. And usually that happens, how we interpret it is there isn't enough collection that meets liquidity requirements. So that's something that we're cautious about in terms of, yes, there's price movement going upwards, but it's a segment of the market where the liquidity is relatively low. So that's something to watch out for. And let's see what other trends we have. So with art NFT, you see that the dominance is still in generative art NFTs. But how we label is we try to sort of reference real world art sectors labeling. So we refer to Sotheby's, for example, the way they label the different form of art. So it's not all just generative art in the NFTs art NFT space. We also have physical and digital art. And for those of you who are interested in some of the definition, we actually have a full methodology paper that outlines each of the different classification and the different form of art NFTs there.
I think it's quite important to note with art NFTs. I think one of the reasons why they've done so well is the collectors behind them have such diamond hands. I think maybe thinking about it, one reason they do that as well is if you're going to put quite fairly substantial most of the time amount of money into something, you probably bought art and you have high conviction on it. You're probably not quite shaky as if you bought a PFP. And if you buy a PFP, I think it's important as well. You use that to build your identity or whatever, and eventually you can get bored of it. You want to refresh it. You want to jump on the next trend of what is the coolest PFP at the moment. Whereas it doesn't really work like that for art. So often it's quite a good buy. And I think one conclusion we made from the index report, right, was that volatility was by far the lowest on art, and that's probably also a good decision to make in terms of buying for this kind of period of super volatile markets. And Louisa might know more, but my understanding is in recessions, fine art is a very stable investment. It doesn't outperform the market really or anything, but it just doesn't go down as badly as other stuff. So people are quite tempted by it. Is that right,
Yeah.
Louisa? And would you claim that art blocks is fine art?
I think how to see is basically when investors look to diversify into the art sector, they're looking for something that do not behave in the same way as equities does. So in this case, they tend to look for something that is a little bit isolated. So I think in our discussion, the example is you will see that, for example, historically, entertainment industry, regardless of how the market is doing, they tend to do, they still tend to do well, even in bad times. Similar to art, some people look at them as a store of value for also, sort of through the longer term. But of course, the challenge is how do we actually value art, because they're so rare and a lot of the pieces are one of one, so you don't have enough pricing reference, and it's heavily reliant on the artist's reputation. So it was interesting when Journeys, for example, when you were talking about Factura, you look at what are some of his historical collection, what other platforms he has showcased his works. So those are some of the factors people consider when they invest in an art piece. So you'll see that with a lot of generative art pieces that perform really well, these artists actually have a reputation beyond the art NFT space. In fact, for a lot of people that value their art NFT, they see as in the physical, sort of their physical art in the broader world, it's actually a lot more expensive, and it seems like relatively their generative art is a lot cheaper. So Damien Hirst is an example. A lot of his work has fetched millions of dollars, whereas comparatively to what's going on with the currency, even though it's so novel, it's almost like a social experiment, yet the value is relatively lower. So that is also something people look at, the artist's track record, how long they've been in the industry. And of course, there's the fashionable aspect, right? Whether or not their art makes a statement, what does it mean in relation to time? Does it speak about, or does it tell a certain story that evokes emotion? And sometimes I find it interesting because if you look at modern art, I think a few years back there was this banana with duct tape over it, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, how did that sell for hundreds of thousands?" But some people say, "Hey, good art is just art that evokes, right, a reaction, whether it's good or bad. It's there to make a statement." So that part is also the fashionable aspect of art is something I think it's a bit hard for us to wrap around our head when it comes to putting a precise value. And that's why with art, it's a longer term investment, because only time will tell and show whether or not it holds its value.
I know someone who's a penguin holder who recently bought a Fidenza. And I didn't know this, maybe I should have known this, but like each Fidenza, I think, and I can be corrected, is like one, like for each one, you can claim like a physical version that the artist is Tyler Hobbs, right? Will then sign. So there's like one signed physical one per each Fidenza. So she bought this one because the person, for whatever reason, didn't claim that signed version. But I thought that was super cool because, like, if that does become a big collection in the future, that physical one might be worth a lot of money, especially if it's like his signature and he becomes a big artist. And I think that's like the cool things about these as well. Like, I actually minted at Art Blocks, but I just paper handed it recently. They had the same thing. They're like, you can buy it, and then you'll also get like the physical print to have it signed. Do we want to have a look as well in like the actual indexes on our dashboards? I don't know if you've got it up, Louisa, already, or if you want to. I'll take your screen off for now, or I can show it. Do you want me to show it? It's fine.
Yeah, if you don't mind, please show it.
Okay. So if we go through some of the indexes, hopefully this is working. Here we go. So if you haven't seen our indexes before as well, it's down here. We got this little tab. And I wanted to ask, actually, as part of it, when I'm reminded. So we had someone on our team like mention about our NFTs in a bull market, and I think it'd be interesting to get like some perspectives on that, because like the temptation maybe is to look at it and see like high users per week and like high transactions, especially in this kind of bearish period. But like personally, I have to say as well, I think it's quite an interesting thing in terms of some segments might be in a bull market, but in general, I feel like the conditions are very different to a few months ago. So my view is like art pieces are in a bull market and have been for like a month or maybe two. In terms of like ETH value, of course, USD is down on quite a lot of stuff. But like if you relate these high transactions and high users, and you think, okay, everything's doing well, but then and even the high buyers. But like personally, I feel like the segments are art pieces, blue chips, which is actually mainly just punks and apes, and then kind of really low cost mints. So it would be interesting to kind of get your take, especially Louisa, because you look at like this type of stuff a lot. Like I think I said the other day, I feel like it's the casino that is in the bull market rather than like the NFT market, because like a couple months ago, people are buying more like a few months ago, people are buying because they feel like this NFT is going to be like a world leading brand. Whereas right now, people are buying because they're like, I think in a couple of days, it's going to be like 50% up. So everyone's just buying like because of the price appreciation. Like even me, I bought those eggs or whatever. I didn't care about those eggs at all, but I just wanted the price to go up. And I'm sure that's what everyone is doing at the moment. So I think the conditions are just completely different. Everyone's here. And I think it's an interesting point as well. Like, is it because everyone is like bored? And I think Louisa had a really good point about like in recessions, entertainment industries do really well. I'd wonder how casinos do in a recession. That'd be a good thing to find out. But like, because why are people like really interested in buying NFTs and flipping them at the moment when the conditions are so bad? So yeah, Louisa first, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we do get that question quite a lot, especially reporters. They seem to like to ask that question too. Why is it NFT is still making upward price action despite what's going on? I think firstly we have to give weight and acknowledgement to the social element. It's fun, you do it as a group. There is this social element. There is a sense of inclusion, especially. I mean, NFT projects that do really, really well, there is something that no one would dispute, and there is a sense of community, that people perceive or have through holding the NFT. So that part, it's hard to put sort of a value, and I think it could be one of those broader debate. Is it price versus value, the value that you get out of it versus, the price you pay for the NFT? But what you say is true is, when we designed the indexes, what we really wanted to showcase was actually there's different, layers to the market, and they're all performing quite differently, or there will be times where certain segment might deviate from the norm. So how we look at it is the NFT 500 tracks the broad market, and that's just the general movement and consensus. And then if you're wanting to have a bit more focus on actually what kind of NFT to get in, or if there's a sort of macro trends with certain kind, it gives you the option to sort of look through the different layer. So you'll find that with the metaverse, what's interesting is so far, even though it's the most volatile one out of all of the indexes, it tends to also hold its performance quite steady in terms of year to date, what it's returning. And how we see that is because with metaverse, it's actually beyond the NFT space, because you have, for example, Meta, you have Roblox, other listed companies that are also, and now recently with Dubai, and they're having a sort of a fund or a grant to push forward with metaverse infrastructure. So you have it's become a sector beyond the NFT space, and therefore with the price movement, it tends to not follow too much or too closely with the NFT 500 index. And then you have the art, and then we have social. So since social NFT is dominant in the space, you'll find that it's highly correlated with the NFT 500 and also the blue chip index. What is really interesting that we found with the blue chip index was just like how with cryptocurrency market, when we try to understand what's going on, we talk about Bitcoin dominance, and a similar sort of logic can also be applied to the blue chip index. And we actually did some analysis, and our principal research analyst, Aurelie and myself, we actually published a paper on, is it possible to have an NFT fear and greed index? And what we did find is there is significant relationship when you actually have a dominance in blue chip index in the coming weeks forward, you tend to have lower price action for the majority of the NFTs. And that's because it kind of hint at, or actually show that there is this risk of sentiment. So in crypto we always talk about, price action is just a reflection of sentiment. Similar logic can also be applied to the NFT space. So it's actually quite interesting to read between the lines of the different indexes. And if you click into our index, what's also interesting is we break that down even further. So we all know social NFT isn't just all profile pictures. We also have utilities, so some of them might act as a DAO, access and membership. To be honest, just as a hint, before the NFT market sort of go into a downward price movement, I think I briefly chatted with Journey and said that there's a hint that this could be happening, because majority of the social NFT was, when I was actually balancing the index, what I saw was an influx of access and membership. But the tricky thing with access and membership NFT is you're buying this NFT, they're raising only for them to build later. So firstly, you need to engage with your community member and to make sure that they're willing to hold on to the NFT and wait for the product, or the other NFT that they can use. And secondly is if we have to look at it in a traditional sense, there's really no product yet. So that was a sign that when you have an influx of people raising without delivering, we could tell that possibly it was there might be a downtrend coming down, coming soon. Another way to interpret the index, which I personally like, is if you go to the NFT 500. So from the name of it, it was designed to at least 500 index. But with the bear market, what we found was that a lot of the NFT collections did not meet our liquidity requirements. So if you scroll down to the table, you'll see that for the recent rebalance, there's only 306. We did, as a team, sort of had a little bit of discussion and idea and see whether or not we should actually change our requirement just so that we actually meet that 500 collection. But in the end, we stay true to it. We believe it's very important to have liquidity, and we stick by our methodology. And this can actually give you a hint that it's still the fact that you don't have enough collections meeting liquidity requirement. It shows that overall in the market there's still really, really low liquidity. So that itself can be a form of indicator. So for those of you wanting to understand a bit better about the macro health of the NFT market, these are some of the signs.
We have a question actually, which is related to this. So it's from Nelson. He asks, do you see gaming NFTs making a comeback, because they've had a hard time, as you can see. I think my view on it is, I just think gaming NFTs are just the gaming sector in Web3 is just not there yet, personally. I think everyone's trying to figure out like how best to do it. Like, I did that thread, I don't want to go over it again, but like, play to earn, should it be like whatever, what is the other one? Play to earn, play and earn, or
Like
something like that.
earn, yeah.
Yeah, so like, how do you best promote it? What is the best way to like integrate tokenomics? Because I feel like a lot of the tokenomics at the moment for games don't really work, because everyone's just selling the token 24/7. So like, currently my view is, I think they will, and I'm like definite that like Web3 gaming will be a big thing. In its current form, probably not, but I feel like it's an interesting point, because if we are going into this kind of space at the moment where the market is either just like really boring or painful, at the moment it's all right, but I don't know how long that's going to last. So do you end up coming back into like the more entertaining elements of it, like NFTs, and then by logic you'd think that you probably would game, and I think I had a conversation with someone recently about this, like, what will people do when they're like super bored by like the crab market? You'd think like they might actually play games. So possibly make a comeback. I don't know. I think it's an interesting one. It's like kind of too early at the moment, in my opinion. Journey, what do you think about gaming NFTs or gaming in general?
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I'm not like a hardcore gamer myself, but I feel like the gaming NFTs, the games themselves really matter more than the NFTs or whatever tokens they have, right? Because people are actually, if they're not having fun, okay, if this game is not fun enough, for people to just enjoy, play, and spend money on, I think it's important that people actually are willing to spend money. I mean, the game industry is so huge. It's because people like just spend so much time on it, right? Like build a character, they spend money on their skins and upgrade all the in-game assets and things like that. But until we have a game like that, I think for blockchain gaming, it takes time, right? There's like triple A games. It's not something that you can simply say, "Oh, we're launching this game," and then like people expect it to, release in a few months.
Yeah.
And also I feel.
Go ahead, Jody.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think.
You go.
Okay, I think just like looking at our NFT index, like what Louisa just said, right? Like most of the NFT 500, they're actually social NFTs, and the fact that people can actually just have fun, have a sense of belonging, and they're not really expecting a lot out of it. Like, for example, the recent Goblin Town release, it was a free mint, and then people was like not sure what it's about. There is no roadmap or whatever. But I think that's kind of like a healthy start compared to like, your utility NFTs, your game NFTs that's promising a lot.
Yeah, I think the point that like I was gonna make, and I don't know how to like word it best, but like I was looking at the ape like metaverse other side, and like those demos, I thought they looked really good, and they did that one demo like a couple months ago, which looked even better because it was like actual gameplay. But what I'm a bit confused about, like, is, and I'm not even in like a way of like hating against it, because I think it looks good, but is the game good enough that you should need to like buy $100,000 ape to play it, if you know what I mean? So like, what I think people are still figuring it out, and the same thing with the land. Like, is that game good enough that you need to be spending like $200,000 on land? Like, I don't know what's the value proposition other than the land going up, I guess. So maybe people just feel like the land is super rare, and like what's the word, scarce, so it will just go up in value. But it's a bit, I think everyone's still figuring it out in terms of like, why do you need to buy an NFT to play the game? Like, I don't know. I'm kind of more thinking that games will exist from probably like Web2 companies, and then they'll integrate NFTs into the game that you can then trade about like skins and whatever. But like having an NFT to enter the game, I don't know, it seems like an interesting dynamic to me. Like sometimes you take a step back and you're like, okay, this game is amazing, but I've spent 100 grand on an ape. Like, is this necessary? And maybe there's like a good answer to that that people have. Like maybe the game is so good that apes then go up, or it's just like it's not a sunk cost anyway, I guess, for the ape, because like if the ape brand grows, surely the NFTs will appreciate anyway. So you haven't lost all that money. But I don't know. I feel like people are just still in the stage of figuring out what the actual value proposition is to Web3 gaming and what's the best way to kind of do it. And I don't think we're there yet. I don't even know if we'll be there yet in like a couple years, if I'm honest. But yeah, Louisa, what do you think?
I just want to highlight the trend we're seeing with NFT gaming is not unique to us too. Like if you look at, for example, the stock price of Tencent, for example, and you see that even the equities, gaming related stocks are also down. So in some way we're not an anomaly in that way, but I agree with you. We're still figuring it out in terms of what the value proposition is, how does NFT fit into gaming. Because if you look at, for example, metaverse, we had the luxury of, for example, Second Life being the predecessor. It's failed before. I mean, it was a huge success. I remember as an undergrad student studying that as a paper and analyzing the dynamics of what it looks like in Second Life. But then it died off. And then for some people we had, is it Habbo Hotel or something. So we had different forms, and then it eventually died down, and then now we have metaverse as we understood. But with how NFT fit into game, it's the first time we're seeing this. I think it will take some time, a few try and errors probably, before we get it right. But I think it's perhaps one thing that's very important is how can that value be sustainable. I think that no one has really cracked or come up with a model yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that, I guess, unfold. Yeah.
I think they're like these companies, like we did a space recently with someone who's like trying to do Web3 gaming. And I've seen threads about it as well. Like, how do you keep the money within the game instead of people just like selling? And where do you actually generate that money from? So I think the instinctual thing is like, let's just get advertisers in the game and like they can promote or whatever. But to me, it sounds like the same issue. Like at the moment, you're so correlated with the market. If the market goes down, your game token goes to like zero and it's worth nothing. No one plays the game. But the same thing is like if you rely on sponsors and you enter what we're in now, which seems like a recession, these sponsors aren't going to be there, or they're going to be there in much less like lower quantities, or they're going to be being like, okay, people aren't playing your game as much anymore, or we don't want to invest as much, so then that money's gone. So I still haven't really heard like a very convincing argument, not argument, like proposition on what the best like version of it is. And I think that's like why we're still not there, because I don't think companies actually know yet like what the best one is. If someone does know the best one, tweet it to me because I'm open to like seeing it. People do. I did that thread, and I get tagged like quite a lot in like gaming threads now because of that. And I must admit, I haven't been convinced. But if you tag me in one, I'll be very interested to see, because I love innovation and everything. I'm not just like a big hater on everything, but I just like critiquing it on like why I don't think we're there yet. And like a bit off topic, but I did want to ask, like, Louisa, when we have these indexes, so instinctually, I think if you went onto Art 20, in my head, it would be like squiggles, fidenzas, other stuff like that, which like everyone knows. So how does that not happen, if you know what I mean? So I know you mentioned that like we're looking at liquidity. Can you give more details on like how you kind of look at that? And why things like fidenzas don't make it in?
Yeah. So what we do is because it's an index, we want to trade, sort of track the market where there's definitely some kind of trade or some kind of volume. So because how we actually calculate our market cap is actually quite different from a lot of how the other funds or how other people interpret market cap. Most people will use a floor price, but what we did was we really adopted a more experimental economics kind of view, where we let the price action speak for itself. So we use mode price. So that means whatever price point that is being sold most frequently in a 7-day period, we use that to estimate the market cap. So some of the sort of blanket rule we use is the collection need to at least have 1,000 ETH in volume in the last 90 days, and then it needs to have a minimum of 100 unique collections, of which 100 transactions, of which half of it is from a unique wallet. So we have all of this. What we wanted to make sure is that if people were going to use this as a signal, and to execute a trade or an investment, there is some sufficient liquidity. So things like, for example, collections like Fidenza and some of the rarer pieces, the value holds, no doubt, but it's probably what we'll call more rare NFT collection. So you just don't see it being traded on a week-to-week basis. Even you might not even see it being traded on a month-to-month basis. So hopefully someday we might have a rare NFT index. It's something we did try to experiment. It was in R&D, but we just want to make sure that it's tested, and we have the confidence before releasing anything. But maybe if anyone's interested in a rare art NFT collection, also let us know. Any feedback will also be good.
Yeah, I feel like I would like if there was just like a basket of art blocks type stuff, and then you could also have in like GM studios and stuff like that. If there was an index for those, I think it would be really cool, because like art blocks action is like price action, as we've seen, has done really well, but we don't technically, because the art 20 doesn't feature all of them, we don't technically have like an index just for art blocks, which I think would be really helpful, because in my head I feel like they're outperforming everything and doing really well, but it'd be like really cool to like see an actual visualization of that. And I think people would appreciate it more, because you don't really hear like anything about art blocks on Twitter. They just kind of silently in the background just go up and no one talks about them. But maybe that's because like the high entry cost. I don't know. But maybe it's also because people can't see like a visual of how good art blocks are doing. So yeah, that's my little feedback or idea that I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
And in the same thing, I think there's other things like the ENS, like digits and stuff like that. But there's just been a lot of like micro markets, I guess you could call, popping up recently. Art blocks, digit ENS names, stuff like this. So hopefully we can get like more specific ones going. And another thing, NFT related, I would love. I know this is not feedback session, but I was just thinking, if we had like a whole dashboard. So here we have really cool tabs for like LooksRare, Uniswap and everything. If we had something for aggregators, I would really like that as well. So if we had like Gem and Genie and we could see the activity on them, I think that would be great, because in the future, I'm pretty sure they're going to be massive. But yeah, that's pretty off topic. Do we have anything else that we want to look at? Otherwise, we could end there, because we're at 53 minutes. Anything you want to add?
Since you mentioned Gem and Genie, actually on our NFT trends dashboard, there's the recent sweeps table where usually the transactions happened.
Where's it going? I can't find it. I'm on it. Yeah.
So, like, I think you tweeted this before as well. This is like free, alpha, right? Because this dashboard is available to everyone, where you can see, especially if you can filter by the smart money emoji. That's super useful. But even if you can't, you can see what the collections are actually being swept off the floor at the moment.
Oh, it's so small on my screen. Okay, here we go. This person, I saw someone tweeting about them today, buying loads of ENS names. Moonbird Oddities. But yeah, you can find like really good stuff on this table, and it's free. It's on Nansen Lite. You can use the link in our bio if you want to sign up to Nansen Lite. I found loads of stuff on here that's like really good. You kind of have to go through though, and like even though some people are buying a lot of things, if we can see an example, This, I don't know what that is, but it's not showing up yet, but 2 people have been buying that. 999 lift balloons, ballons. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are buying this. So these are the type of things that you'd be then like take further looks at. So you just like right click and go on NFT God mode. Let's do that quickly for this. What is this? It sounds like a familiar name. Hopefully it's not something offensive. For some reason I feel like it is. Yeah, like, what is this? So this even now has smart money buying it. It's gone down though now, and the transactions are much lower. But this is quite interesting. Transactions picking up a bit more. So these are the types of things that you'd look at actually. This has been out for like a couple days now, but you can find a lot of gems by just using this table completely for free, which I think is quite crazy actually. And punks, rocks, and all of this. So you just need to like find patterns. How many are people buying? Are they spending a lot on it? If people are spending a lot on it as well, I always feel like there's more conviction then because they've got a lot more to lose. If people are just spending like 0.03 on it, they don't care about that, do they? It's probably going to 0. But you can't always tell, so you need to like one individually. It's good that you pointed that out. I forgot about that. But yeah, is that anything else? Louisa, anything to say? Or are we done there? Done? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Journey and Louisa, first, actually, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions as well, you can always DM us. You can ask us anything. If you want to know how to use Nansen better, like how to trade NFTs. We did a whole thread, actually, on Factura, so check that out. But you can always DM me on the Intern account. You can DM the main account, whatever. We want to be like as engaging as we can. Do we have any questions? Let me check quickly. Someone says very insightful. Someone says, where can I cancel the 7-day trial? We can probably answer that. We don't know. Does it just cancel for you? If not, DM me and I'll find out. I don't know the answer to that. And that's it, I think. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully we will see you next week. Join this Friday. I'll be on with CMS Intern. It's going to be like a much more casual stream. We'll talk about like various stuff, probably anything, probably not enough Nansen. But I'll try and integrate some Nansen stuff into it as well, how you can use it. And also hear, what does CMS Intern do? What does he get up to? How did he become CMS Intern? So it should be really, really interesting. I'm super excited for that. So hopefully you are too. So yeah, subscribe so you don't miss it. Turn your notifications on so you also don't miss it. Sign up to Nansen Live with the link below in our bio. And that was it. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you on Friday and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thank you so much.